The Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Real Doctor Who fans with real Doctor Who opinions.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Alhambra Podcast, episode 332 of the podcast. I am Brett, and going on yet again a solo edition of the podcast. In this podcast, however, I am going to be looking at the concluding episode of Ncuti Gatwa's first season as Doctor, focusing on the Empire of Death and fan reactions, a viewing figures update information given to Doctor Who TV, well, actually not given to them, but relayed to me through them. And it basically kind of confirms all the things that I said in episode 331 regarding viewing figures. And then, of course, I think we need to discuss the positives and negatives of Ncuti's first season, as well as a discussion that I saw on Twitter that occurred regarding what do you think will happen in Ncuti Gatwa's season 2 of Doctor Who. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you'd like to, email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. That's ALHAMBR audio, all one word, at gmail.com. You can tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. So as we look into this episode, I want to look at, first off, the question that Radio Times brought up, and because I think there's some correlation regarding this poll as well as the Doctor Who viewing figures that was released on the 27th of June, and I didn't see it until yesterday. But I think there's a lot to draw conclusions to on how people are watching, and however, I do have some disagreements with that, but we'll get into that as I look at this article. So anyway, on the Radio Times Twitter line, which was done, let's see, it was on the 21st of June, 2024, they had a poll asking, how will you be watching the hashtag Doctor Who finale, Empire of Death? They had 3 questions: cinema, BBC iPlayer, and BBC One on Saturday. Now, even though this was a limited, not that many people responded to this poll, I think this poll does speak louder into people's viewing habits, and it does connect to the DoctorWhoTV.co.uk article that I saw just yesterday. And so with 14% of the vote, people said that they were going to watch The Empire of Death in cinemas. So, and I believe like about over 300,000 people went to go see it for their midnight showing, which I will give you, I have not done a midnight showing since probably the early 2000s. I've just decided nothing's worth my brain being half awake to watch the show. Anyway, BBC iPlayer had the result of 57.7 people going to be watching The Empire of Death that way. And then in second place, BBC One on Saturday, 28.2%. So as we look at that, the Radio Times, not a huge, results. They only had 333 votes. But I still think that small sample size does give you a pretty good and accurate connection to how people are watching and consuming media. I think it is very interesting to look at. And I'm not, the one thing that you could say is, well, what about the people that watch it on Disney Plus? Again, we don't have those numbers. I went over that in the previous podcast. Disney Plus has been, shouting out how great the Ahsoka series was, saying it was the highest series watched in 2023. The part 1, part 2 of The Acolyte has been the highest streamer episode the first 2 episodes done in 2024. So again, like I said last podcast, the silence from BBC or the Disney Plus is deafening regarding, or maybe super loud, because of the lack of, positive spins or whatnot. I don't know. The other thing that you do have to think about, and I brought it up in the previous podcast, there's so many people that are in the UK that are watching it on Disney Plus so that they can do a live, get their video uploaded as fast as possible with live, thoughts, whatever, comments, concerns, or whatever. And, but there's not that many YouTubers that are doing that. And I feel as though if I did have the TV license and I was in the UK and I did that for my YouTube channel, I had better darn well either have my iPlayer watching it live or giving it a view on the iPlayer so that my view that I did do that is maybe not being counted or is not being relayed as being counted might go somewhere positively to show that, you actually did watch the show. I don't know. That's what I would do. If I was really into the show and I really wanted it to succeed and I wanted to help it out in any means necessary, even if I did watch it illegally through a VPN, I think I would on purpose have my TV give it the one viewing number that, because it could help. Again, if you want to save the show, if you care about the show, I think you need to, help it out in as many ways as possible. And that would just be one of them. Silly, yes, but I think that would be one of them. So anyway, you have that with how people are going to be watching the Ncuti first season conclusion. And then we have this, and this is the BBC response to Doctor Who series 14 low viewership concerns. So I found this on, actually my phone suggests me read this off of, what did I say? DoctorWhoTV.co.uk. And they got some of this from the Times article that I believe occurred the previous day. So it says, the BBC addressed concerns about Doctor Who Season 14's ratings, pointing to shifts in viewing habits. And again, this is not new. Me and Liam have been talking about shifts in viewing habits for a long time. I can't remember if I got distracted and didn't relay it properly, but during the Capaldi, during the Jodie era, I picked up everything on iTunes because I did not have BBC America. I wanted to watch it. I needed to review it for the podcast. And so I would do the subscription package. So it didn't give BBC America a viewership number, but that was how I was watching it because I was not going to illegally download it. So I was watching it differently, and those numbers, nobody ever talked about those numbers. But again, I think with the ease of Disney Plus, this year is the first time in over a decade, I have not bought the season pass on Disney Plus. Or not Disney Plus, on iTunes, because I was watching it for Disney Plus. I got Disney Plus for $2.99 a month. So, I mean, pretty easy to not pass that up. So anyway, it says this year, Doctor Who unfortunately experienced the lowest overnight ratings to date, dipping to 2.02 million viewers. The 7-day catch-up figures also saw the series low of 3.38 million. Russell previously says that stating about the drop, they might not be the ratings we love. We always want higher. But he also says no one gets the audience. Let's see. The audience no one ever gets are the under 30s. They just don't watch television anymore, but those figures are astronomical. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how they figured out under 30s. I know some people are claiming that the BBC, Doctor Who, Bad Wolf are trying to make a presence on TikTok or whatnot. What? If those are TikTok numbers, people still aren't watching Doctor Who. They're just watching snippets. Anyway, a spokeswoman for the BBC told the Times overnight ratings, and here is, what Liam has been saying probably since 2016. Overnight ratings no longer provide an accurate picture of all those who watch drama in an on-demand world. Well, yeah, we've covered this many times, but here is the problem with that is how are you going, what metric are you going to be using to either pick up a additional season of a series? I mean, overnight. So you're going to have to be patient. The corporate overlords over all of these entities, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, whatever, Disney, whatever, they need to come out with a good strategy on how to read some of these numbers. Netflix basically kind of gives it maybe, I think, a week or so. And if the minutes viewed isn't at a high enough level, they drop it. The 1899 show that so many people liked didn't have the viewing numbers that they wanted to deem a second season viable. So the question is yeah, we've known that this is not an accurate picture of all who watch TV currently, but we've known that for quite some time. The spokeswoman for the BBC continues. It says this season of Doctor Who premiered on the iPlayer nearly 24 hours before broadcast, and an episode 1 has already been viewed by nearly 6 million viewers and continues to grow. Okay. And I think that is, again, twofold. It is how we watch TV. I think a lot of those we noticed with what the 28 viewing day figures that Russell T Davies discussed was just a little bit below 6 million. But, the consolidated numbers, what did it go to? It went from 2.6 million overnight to 4.01 for the 7-day plus 4 screens. So it raised almost 2 million up from the 7-day plus 4 screens for a month long. Okay, so maybe that's 2 million people that are watching it binge model. But again, as I've said before, why didn't those same why has this not been the either reason or rationale during the Chibnall era, during the specials? It has only been the excuse or reason why people aren't watching Doctor Who during the 15th Doctor. However, like I showed you in the previous podcast from IGN, they deemed the writing for the Chibnall era not good. The Twitter poll that I discussed with Liam and Legion back in November of 2023 deemed that most people liked any other episode over the Jodie era episode. So why wasn't this a reason why? You'd think, especially with the Flux, they would have thrown this information out during the Flux, because you have a 6-part interconnective stories, kind of, sort of, over 6 weeks. So why didn't they, throw this out? Again, it's understandable. Viewing has changed, but we all know that viewing has not changed that dramatically over the past decade. This almost seems to be an excuse. It might be an excuse. It might not be an excuse. Anyway, the spokeswoman concluded that Doctor Who remains one of the most watched programs on iPlayer and is the BBC's top drama for the under 35s this year, making it one of the biggest programs for the demographic across all streamers and broadcasters. Okay, good. If people like it, they like it. I am happy for them. I just think that there is, as the kids would say, some susness regarding, or this is sus. This article right here, again, where was it near the tail end of the Peter Capaldi era? Where was it during all of the Jodie Whittaker era? Nobody was complaining about that during The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Why was this not pulled out during season 12 or Flux or the specials of Jodie or the David Tennant specials? It only has been, this has been the excuse for season 1. And I think that there has to be, scratching of head, trying to figure out why this is just brand new to information. Again, information that Liam has been shouting out at the rooftops for since about 2016-17. So again, disagree, but anyway. So I want to look at some of the fan reaction to the Empire of Death. I already shared some people that responded to that from the cinemas in the previous podcast, but I think that there needs to, we need to take a step back and look at Ncuti's season 1 as a whole. Viewing figures wise, obviously, again, not good. Again, previously stated, people watch TV differently. They might have binged it. Okay, I'll give you that. However, it's, like I said, people have been watching it like that for a while. So asterisk, not sure. You have people on YouTube that are trashing the show. You have people who are being super positive about the show and ignoring the blemishes, whereas some people on YouTube are over embellishing the blemishes. You have people mocking almost every other scene. Hey, do you know that Paula Cornell and somebody else, not Paula Cornell, no, Toby Hadoke and somebody else did the Running Through Corridors series, kind of discussing all of the flaws within the stories from the first, I think, 5 seasons of Doctor Who. Then you have Paula Cornell's Discontinuity Guide. It's always been a thing. YouTube has not always been a thing, though. So books have been written about the inconsistencies and whatnot. But again, and maybe here's the difference between the two. People loved the show and didn't feel as though it could do any wrong. And now maybe with social media, the politicization of everything, it seems like we now need to, I don't know, find and yell out those holes. Who knows? However, I will tell you, I think personally, the best site, and it's not because they followed me, it's not because I even had a short conversation on Twitter with them, but the best site to find, I think, the accuracy of how people felt regarding Ncuti's first season as the Doctor, RTD Part 2, I think is the timescales. I think it is the best gauge in how people felt about this first season. And my rationale for that is this. So I was, that's one of my go-to sites that I, to figure out Big Finish stuff primarily. But one thing that I really like about the timescales, what they've done, is they have kind of prevented review bombing. And what I mean by that is, again, timescales is on a spectrum of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, in your opinion, 10 being the highest. However, you can rate things, you could have rated things without any commentary, without any words, and it'd be just fine. However, what they've done, and I don't know when they did it, but they basically changed it to where if you are going to rate the show 3 or below, so 3, 2, or 1, you need to write a minimum, I believe, of 300 words, or maybe 300 characters. I'm not sure. I wasn't paying attention. But I could probably figure that out in just a second. But you need to write a minimum of 300 characters or words. Let's see, here it is. I pull it up. You can add, let's see, so it says, for ratings less than 4, you are required to post a review. Reviews must be at least 300 characters. Review draft is automatically saved every 20 seconds. Okay, so I like that because that prevents people from just, oh, it sucks, 1. I wish that they would also, they would force people to, if you're going to give it a 9 or a 10, give them the same stipulations. because I feel as though it's so easy. Oh yeah, of course I like it. It's a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 is perfect. Like we've discussed on the podcast so many times, there is not that many perfect shows, perfect movies. If you find everything is 10 out of 10, I am so grateful for you, because like everything thoroughly, like watching a sign twirler on the corner is probably a 10 out of 10 for you. Like everything just brings you joy. I don't know. Maybe sometimes when people take out a laser pen and try to get their cats to, pounce on it, you find yourself also wanting to pounce on it. Like everything is not a 10 out of 10. Everything is not a 1 out of 10. And I wish that the timescales would prevent people from just, positively review bombing. If you really, really think it's a 10 out of 10, you need to voice your opinion. Similarly to what they did. If you think it is a 1, 2, or 3, you need to voice your opinion, and you need to give 300 characters. Hopefully they use some sort of AI thing to prevent people from just, copy pasting or just, doing random drivel regarding certain things. I don't know. I think that would be the best thing for everybody. But I do appreciate it. And I do find that the timescales is probably one of the better sites to get a temperature, gauge the temperature of how people feel. The highest rated season 1 for Ncuti's Doctor is 73 yards with an 8.3. Now, that surprises me, because when it ended, there was so many, my YouTube feed was giving me so many video suggestions to watch about how people have no idea what went on, not sure what happened in the entirety. And so I thought that was going to be one of the lower ones. That one is one of the higher ones, I believe, followed by Boom is the next one with an 8.1. You also have The Legend of Ruby Sunday is an 8.0. So part 7 of season 1, or part 1 of the 2-part conclusion, 8.0. Empire of Death, 9.5. Sorry, not 9.5. I read that backwards. 5.9. Like, this last part is not received well. Oh yeah, on reflection, I really feel annoyed about so many things in this episode, is one comment. Overall, while there were some nice scenes, this episode used the worst elements from what was a very mixed season. Okay? One has to wonder if going forward, who would just be better off taking a break from these epic 2-parters, which almost invariably promise more than they can deliver. That is a very interesting situation. And Big Finish kind of did that with the Tom Baker 4th Doctor adventures early on, when they would have 2-part conclusions, and then they just did that Zygon hunt, which was just a story that ended. Some people, lazy. That's the word I keep coming back to. You ever watched a story that with absolutely no stakes in it at all and almost no plot? Enter Empire of Death. Empire of Death is probably one of the most divisive finales I've seen in a long while, but I have to say that I had a great time with it. Okay, so we got a positive one. Unremarkable ending to an unremarkable season. Tragically acted as best as they could by 2 brilliant actors. Okay? Embarrassing. I hate to be so negative about my favorite show, but come on, man. Let's see. What do I want? Although there was a lot of negativity in this review, I have to note that this episode is a blast to watch, but upon critical analysis, it falls apart. I like the episode, and unlike part 1, which I'll be skipping, wow, I can see myself watching this episode over and over again because of how much fun I had with it. Okay, much like this season of Who, I consider The Empire of Death to be lackluster, return to form, but an adequate experience for the whole. As a finale, however, it it's made very, very questionable. Compared to the events of the previous episode, Legend of Ruby Sunday, this series momentum is taken off course. Yeah. All right. So again, underwhelming. Last of the Time Lords is no longer my least favorite RTD story. Hey, you know what? We got something to agree upon right there. Continuing from the previous episode, Sutekh has risen, but the Doctor has one last trick up his sleeve to defeat... Okay, whatever. Empire of Death tries to do so much, but like the Ruby Sunday, it is pulling together too many ideas and plot threads without sufficient time to do them justice. There are just some good ideas around the power of memories and stories. There's some excellent material for Bonnie Langford and Millie Gibson, and some decent material for Ncuti. However, it just doesn't come together in a satisfying whole. Let's see. Season finale sees Sutekh destroying all life in the universe. The whole arc involving Ruby's mother was just terrible. Why was Sutekh obsessed with her? How could this anyway, again, like a couple people have said, this episode probably is the most divisive out of everybody. But I will say, and I need to give the timescales props, I really appreciated how they had the fans, how they prevented it not being review bombed by mandating a 300 character review. I wish other sites would do that. IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes. I really think that would be helpful in gauging whether people actually watched it. And I think in order to gauge it better, you'd need to have, some sort of AI type of a situation. So, one last thing. So on Twitter, they had, I found a post, and it basically said, what does everybody hope will happen? Oh, let me just close that. Okay. What does everybody hope will happen in the next series of Doctor Who? Do you hope the Doctor and his companions meet old enemies? If so, who? So as I look through this, you have some people, you know what, I'm kind of done with the series, don't care. Some said, and this is probably what Liam would say, basically, I want this season, but I want ooh, interesting. This is not what Liam would say. Sorry, I didn't read the whole thing. I want fewer magic-based villains. Also, it's proper time for a scary Dalek scheme. I hope that they meet old ideas if these ideas deserve a revisit. That's a good one right there. I'm absolutely begging that Russell doesn't change somebody. Oh, I also hope Mrs. Flood is a satisfying conclusion. Those of you that are wondering, there's, people believe that she's the White Guardian. Who knows? All I will tell you is somebody wants the Mara. They want the Daleks, Jenny and Susan, please. More Daleks and Gallifrey. They want Time Lords back. A lot of people want Susan. Ruby has to be in at least 50% of the episodes. Hopefully Susan comes back. Only one Dr. Light story. Okay. So this is kind of interesting to see. Cyberman story. Most likely to happen. No old enemies. Just badly written ones. Okay. Rootins. That'd be fun, especially because of the new Big Finish series. I'm missing the Daleks a bit, says somebody. A follow-up with Rogue. The return of Morbius. No. Unless we decide to undo the Timeless Child. That is one of the things that has really prevented me from wanting to get into the show. But anyway, maybe Morbius, so he could say, see, Doctor, I told you that you had faces before the crotchety old man. No, I would not like that at all. Anyway, that being said, I'm going to conclude this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. Please stay tuned for future podcasts where I'm going to be discussing and breaking down some lists, some other Big Finish stuff and reviews, as well as eventually giving you my thoughts on the episodes of I'm just missing Liam and Legion. And it's hard to do the episode breakdown and discussion without them there. But That being said, please stay tuned for future podcasts. Email the show with your thoughts at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. And until next time, I will see you in time. You have been listening to the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Doctor Who is owned and trademarked by the BBC. Doctor Who Alhambra is not affiliated with the BBC or Big Finish. No infringement is intended. Visit our website at alhambrapodcast.weebly.com or email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet us at Alhambra Podcast. That is ALHAMBRA Podcast. Thank you.